On this edition of North Bay Bountiful, we explore fermented foods. We'll see why Sonoma County is a fermentation hotspot in the Bay Area. We'll visit a fermentation bar, an artisanal sourdough bakery, and make sauerkraut and kimchi. We'll discover the magic of Kefir beverages and then join a fermentation circus that employs sustainable practices. It's all coming up next on North Bay Bountiful.
North Bay Bountiful is made possible in part by Rocky, the free-range chicken, and Rosie, the original organic chicken. The Sonoma County Agricultural Preservation and Open Space District, Made Local Magazine, and Sonoma County Go Local. Support also provided by Pepperwood Preserve and through the generous support of the Sonoma County Water Agency. Cultivate, celebrate, connect.
Fermentation has been used to preserve food since before recorded history. Fermented food and drink introduce beneficial bacteria into our digestive systems and has a positive effect on the environment. Less food goes to waste and can be stored for longer periods of time. Jennifer Harris, organizer of the Fermentation Festival in Sonoma County, introduces us to some of the remarkable people who are helping to bring back this ancient art.
Fermentation is an ancient form of food preservation practiced on nearly every continent. Non-alcoholic fermented foods and drinks are experiencing a renaissance in the Bay Area. I'm Jennifer Harris, and I run the Sonoma County Fermentation Festival. I love learning everything I can about fermented foods and drinks. These probiotic-rich products offer unique flavors and potential health benefits. I'm visiting several fermenters in Sonoma County to get to know more about what they do. My first stop is restaurant, cafe, and fermentation bar Shed in Healdsburg. I'm meeting Chef Perry Hoffman, who enjoys incorporating a wide variety of fermented foods into his recipes. Perry explains how he makes several of Shed's fermented products, including their signature kombucha.
So Perry, I see you have selected some pretty incredible fermented and pickled items to showcase.
Yeah, I mean, in life and here at Shed, we're just kind of surrounded by fermented foods, and some are obvious and some are just part of everyday life that you don't realize that are in front of you. Yeah.
So give me a food that I would normally think I wouldn't expect is fermented.
Fermented chocolate.
No way.
Yeah, which is crazy.
What is fermentation?
So fermentation is the art of preserving, if you will, just like beer or wine or anything that we associate with being fermented.
It's a process. It is a living process.
It is a living process. Sunlight, temperature, everything around us can either speed up, slow down, help, or work against your process.
Shed creates kombucha fermented from tea. SCOBY, the symbiotic culture of bacteria and yeast, is the mother culture of this fermentation process.
So look at this beautiful mother here.
Yeah.
I am so excited to learn more about this. May I touch her?
Please, yeah.
I have clean hands.
Yeah.
Tell me what is going on here. Look at all these different layers.
Yeah, so every layer that you're looking at was actually a new fermentation process from making kombucha. So every time we start a new fermentation, so every time we add sugar back into our tea, a new SCOBY starts to form and attaches itself to the old one.
Wow, so this really is her life story right here.
This is her life story, yeah. If every layer could talk.
Fermented food company Wild Brine has recently moved into a larger Santa Rosa production facility. Wild Brine owners Rick Goldberg and Chris Glab are happy to show me around their new facility.
This is where the process starts. We receive produce every morning starting at about 4:30. Fresh produce comes in from the fields, gets unloaded, put in our cooler and it's held at about 36 to 38 degrees.
We get that produce on a daily basis because it's really important for traditional fermentation for the produce to be as fresh as possible. A, to keep all those organisms alive and happy that come in on the produce because we use those to do the fermentation, and to have all the nutrition and all the moisture content there to feed those organisms so they can metabolize and reproduce and really start that fermentation.
One of the things you're looking at right now is some fresh tomatillos, and we are now making a sriracha that we use some tomatillos for a little nice little tart sweetness to it. So you're going to taste that product later, and
Rick and Chris are continuing to create a larger array of fermented products, but they began with sauerkraut. In the prep room today, the Wild Brine staff are getting cabbage and other ingredients ready for the fermentation process. The chopped cabbage is mixed with spices in preparation for fermentation. Lactobacillus is the key bacteria that aids in the fermentation process.
Are you adding any liquid, or you're just relying on?
All the brine is formed from the salt through osmosis, drawing that moisture out of the cabbage. In that moisture is all the nutrients and micronutrients that you can't see, but that's what feeds the lactobacillus to get them happy and multiplying and socializing in there.
The mixed ingredients are placed in bins and stored at a constant temperature to create an ideal environment for fermentation. Wild Brine draws inspiration for their fermented products from around the world: the sauerkraut of Germany and Poland, the sriracha of Thailand and Vietnam, and the kimchi of Korea and Japan. Rick and Chris then add their own secret ingredients to create unique Sonoma County fermented foods. Baker Eli Colvin is the owner of Revolution Bread. Sourdough is perhaps the Bay Area's most famous fermented food. Eli shows me the grain storage shed on the Petaluma farm where he bakes his artisanal sourdough.
How exciting that you get to bake on the land where most of your grain comes from.
To come and actually be part of the process from field to bread and go through that whole process. It's like, of course any baker would jump on that, you know? So I got lucky, you know, it just kind of worked out.
When you made the change from buying bags of flour to starting with grain that you were milling, how was that learning curve like?
Oh, it was everything I'd learned was useless.
Wow.
Yeah. All the techniques and everything I'd been used to and been using didn't work. And it has to do with all these little things that, again, mistakes, has always been my best teacher. I mean, there's not just one answer, you know what I mean? It's always so many variables that you gotta figure it out, and it's tricky, you know?
Eli mills the locally grown grain into flour right in his own bakery.
Fermentation, I think, you know, I'm just a fan of it. I think it's cool, but I think, how did people figure this out? You know what I mean, we have a better scientific knowledge of what's going on, but a lot of these techniques and things that I'm learning, and I think even with, you know, like sauerkrauts and all that stuff, we understand and we need to control that, but I mean, they had less control, but they figured out this is the right way to do it. Thousands of years later, we're still using these processes, and I think that's when you go back to buying that bread, loaf of bread in the store, we forgot where that came from.
So inside here, I see this gorgeous, bubbly starter that has been fed. Was it fed at this time?
Last feeding was at 4:40, yes.
Okay, and so you have fed this guy, what is the food that you're giving?
Flour and water, and then a little bit of the seeding from that. So you just yeah.
And it's an ongoing process. So when you bake bread from this, you will then save some of that starter for the next day's batch.
Right. So this one's been going, I mean, people have older ones, but this one's probably 4 years old.
And if we were to look with a microscope in here and see, would there be millions of bacteria and yeast?
There's probably more like billions, I would guess. There's wild yeast and bacteria. kind of doing their thing and feeding and creating the bubbles and creating the acidity, which is the bacteria.
How do these beautiful ridges form?
So here's the thing. This is the interesting thing about bread to me, is that you nurture and take care of this so much, and this is the backbone of everything. But at the end of the day, you're going to throw it into a hot oven and burn it up and kill it. So this is its death throw. So the gases, everything are releasing. So the score is allowing it to open up and let those gases come out. And if you do it right, the scoring matters, and it's not always an aesthetic thing. But that's what's going to give you your holes. That's going to make it more of an even crumb on the inside.
Two grains, salt, you
Salt.
said? Salt, water, and then those microbes,
And the
those magical
microbes.
microbes that come in, and that's all. And
That's
time.
it. And time.
Amazing. Let's break bread.
All right, let's see.
Oh my goodness, look
you
at
go.
that. Look at those big, beautiful air pockets.
All right.
And that crust.
Yeah, I mean, it's, I think I see all the stuff that I don't like. But this is good. This is actually pretty good, especially for, 100% whole milled wheat. So
It's gorgeous.
right.
All right, cut me a
Get a
slice,
slice?
please. Thank you. Cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers to
So
your
it's always
art.
good to give it a little smell
my
first.
gosh.
Yeah.
Fermented foods have been around for a long time, but my fermentation journey has just begun.
Sonoma County is leading the region in the production of fermented non-alcoholic beverages like kombucha and kefir. Tom Boyd and Deanna Denard of the Kefir in Sebastopol explain their process in this report from North Bay Bountiful contributor Spoiled in Sonoma.
I'm Deanna,
I'm Tom.
and we are the owners of the Kefir.
That's correct.
It was just a lucky chance that we took a class that taught us about water kefir, and that is the medium that we chose because the culture grows, and so we brought it home and started making water kefir, and started getting more and more and more bacteria, and then the next thing you knew, I had to get a second refrigerator, and I had to start giving it away to my clients and to friends. We fell in love with the water kefir culture, and because there's so many things that you can do with it. You can make cheese, you can make vinegar, you can make beverages. With water kefir, it's a really short process, 1 to 3 days. So you get the really good turnaround of getting something really healthy in your gut.
And the thing that we say to everybody, experiment. You're at home, you're free. You can make anything. Go out, tear some stuff out of your garden, throw it in your kefir.
That's what I love about water kefir, is because what we realize is that by feeding it, using herbs and spices, you're pre-digesting those herbs and spices, and so you're really getting everything out of those minerals that are in those medicinal plants and those medicinal spices. So water kefir, and plus the probiotics, so it's a really good delivery mechanism for all of the medicines that we take on a daily basis. That is delicious. Wow.
How about a live culture Bloody Mary?
Environmental sustainability plays a big part in the work of Cirque Ferments. This Windsor-based small-batch fermentation operation is focused on probiotic potential and supporting local farmers.
This is where quality is found.
It's true.
In the back door of a shared kitchen. Cirque to Ferment started on the couch in my parents' house. I had fallen about 100 feet in a rock climbing accident. As I was on the couch recovering, I read a book by Yvon Chouinard, a book about his business, Patagonia, being one of the leaders in sustainable technology and sustainable business, really. And I was also going to school as a sustainable business major. I decided to start a business, and this was it. I had a really good passion for fermenting foods, and my beautiful girlfriend Tina here has helped me the whole way. We have a new employee, my beautiful girlfriend's brother here, Michael.
My beautiful brother.
Basically a brother. And yeah, now we're just all three of us rocking ferments and sharing our love and sharing the wealth of probiotics to Sonoma County people.
We have a couple of different varieties of sauerkraut that we make here at Cirque de Ferment. Here we have our purple ginger. It's super basic, just ginger, red cabbage, green cabbage, and the salt brine, and that's what they're making out on the floor right now. We have whole fermented garlic cloves. Down here we have our curtido. It's our South American style ferment. Has golden beets, carrots, green onions, jalapenos, and a blend of different chilies. This is our turmeric sauerkraut, so it's turmeric, ginger, and black peppercorns. The reason we add black peppercorns is you don't get the same health benefits from turmeric if you don't add the pipering to it. And then over here is our plain Jane, so it's just cabbage and brine.
We are making our purple ginger sauerkraut. So we're chopping the cabbage, we're cutting off the bottom and cutting out the core so it can go to the shredder.
We source just about everything that we use from local organic farms. You know, we know all of the farmers that we get our produce from. You know, we have connections with these people, and I think that's really important. You know, when you're making something that is so healing, you know where it comes from, you know what you're giving to people.
Everything that we ferment is in glass vessels. We don't add vinegar to any of our products. When it's the finished product, it still has a crunch. It's not like mushy. It's not something that's hard to eat. It's good. It's good stuff.
I think the main thing really that sets apart mass production from small batches like this is that we allow our ferments to sit the appropriate amount of time so that people actually get the probiotic potential that they are wanting in a good sauerkraut. A lot of mass production is based on as soon as it's ready to sell it. And really that's not allowing much time for the probiotics to build. For our purple ginger kraut, we mix red and green cabbage, all organic obviously. We also add in our ginger and our pink Himalayan salt. And what the salt does is create an environment that beneficial bacteria thrive in. All the natural occurring lactobacillus is already on the produce. And we create a happy, alkaline, salty environment for them to eat the glucose sugars of the vegetables and in turn create lactic acid. So you can really start to see the cabbage going down. It's getting more squishy. So you can see this is where the magic happens. Starts to happen. One of the coolest things about sauerkraut and fermented vegetables is the fact that the nutrients involved in the vegetables become 99% available to you after fermentation. So when you eat raw cabbage like this, you're only getting about 50% of the vitamins and nutrients that are actually there. Whereas after 8 weeks in a slow fermented process, you actually get 99% of what's actually there. Alright, so once you've let your cabbage soak in its salty brine for a while, it's really squishy, and you see a layer of brine covering the cabbage, and you press it all down, you are ready to pack your fermenter. So now we just fill up our fermenter. Here we have a 6.5 gallon all glass, lead-free glass vessel. It has an anaerobic seal, so there's no mold or scum layers. There's nothing weird getting in your kraut. And once you get a good layer in there, you can kind of jam it in there with your fist. And you'll start seeing the juices come up. You really want to pack it in there so that there's no space for air. All right, once we have this pretty much full of cabbage, you can dump the rest of the juices in here and fill her up. Here's the sauerkraut that we just made, this purple ginger kraut. Here's the same purple ginger sauerkraut about 8 weeks later, packed full of probiotics, and it has turned into this radiant pink purple color. But here's our creation. As a business growing, it's constantly in my mind of how can I grow, but how can I grow sustainably in a way that's not going to hurt the environment more, just so I can make an extra buck. One big way is reusing all of our bottle deposits. We reuse all the glass. We put deposits on all the glass. And it's not just a throwaway thing. Keep the glass locally so that we stop using so many resources. We are in the process of designing a fully sustainable kitchen with water collection, water recycling, keeping this ferment room underground so that we don't have to use energy to cool it down, keep it at the right temperature. With the technology that's out there now, it's very possible, and I'm not sure why others aren't doing it, and I hope to start seeing more of it.
There's so much life and color and flavor and fun going on. We have a fermentation circus. This is a fermented circus that we're in, and that's why we're Cirque du Ferment.
Chef Jim Kaysen is the department chair of the Culinary Arts program at Santa Rosa Junior College. The JC teaches fermentation practices to their culinary arts students. Kaysen shares his perspective as an educational chef in this report from North Bay Bountiful contributor Spoiled in Sonoma.
I'm Chef Jim Kaysen. I moved here from North Carolina. I'm a full-time instructor here and department chair for culinary arts. It was definitely my southern upbringing that sparked my interest in food preservation. We live out in Alexander Valley. We have a nice big garden that we grow every year. I spend almost the whole summer doing pickles and putting up preserves. And like you mentioned, we have so many good small farms, and there's so many good collectives, and there's so much good communication between those collectives. The types of food that we can get is just, it's astounding. It really is. But I don't know anywhere else in the U.S. that has our variety of foods, as many farmers, the spectacular wines, the artisan cheeses that we have, and then we have all these great independent restaurants with these very well-known chefs, and there's so much competition, and the level is so high on all the food, everywhere. Here in our baking program, we teach them the first times they learn how to make bread with commercial yeast. Then once they get the process down, then we take the commercial yeast away from them and then show them how to capture wild yeast. Here's how you capture wild yeast, here's how you do a starter, here's how you can do a sourdough. We talk about the locality of yeasts and how yeasts all have different flavors, and the San Francisco sourdough tastes different than the Sonoma sourdough. So yeah, we do a lot of work with sourdoughs. It's just, it comes from different plants. Like a lot of the yeast that we will capture here when we do sourdoughs is from grapes. So my wife is also a chef, so sometimes we fight over the stove, and we will fight with each other about which is the proper way to do it and which isn't. But we cook at home more often than we eat out. We don't eat out very much. Like I mentioned, we have our own garden. We put up a lot of our own vegetables, so we eat at home a lot. We live in a food paradise here in Sonoma County. When I had the opportunity to move here as a chef and to teach cooking here, I was like, oh yes, let's do this.
Fermentation is an art that was almost lost, but is now being rediscovered by a determined group of people in Sonoma County. This simple practice brings together an environmental sensibility, local produce, and self-reliance. People are learning to embrace the health and nutrition benefits of fermentation, and in the process, the North Bay is leading the way in fermentation education.